This is one of over 500 assisted PNF stretching demonstrations that can be found as part of my 80 Days to Your Dream Body course, which is available to my channel members. If you'd like to see all of them, then consider becoming a member. But for right now, let's get our stretch on. And while we're resting, we're going to continue to where we left off, and we're going to be focusing on the scapular depressors. And this time, we're going to be taking the patient into 180 degrees of coronal abduction. So the arm is going to be pointing straight up so that the humerus is roughly in line with the ear, and we want it parallel to the spine of the body. With regard to this variation now, we're going to start getting more into the inferior fibers of the inferior trapezius, and we're also going to be getting into the inferior fibers of the inferior portion of the latissimus dorsi and the pectoralis minor. What we're going to do is we have a couple of different hand options. What you would do is take the patient first into 180 degrees of coronal abduction, and then we can either place one hand at the back just to stabilize them so they feel more comfortable, and then we could have one hand at the distal humerus, proximal radius, and ulna right at the crook of the elbow. And from here, we could pull to get the stretch and initiate the PNF by having them go into scapular depression. That would be one way. My preferred method whenever I'm working on the scapular depressors at 180 degrees is I like to go elbow to elbow with the patient. So for me, the way that I would do this is I would take my arm, place the crook of my elbow against the crook of the patient's elbow. I would lock the radius and ulna up against my abdominals. And then with the other hand, I'm locking onto the bicep. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go right onto the proximal or the distal humerus. From here, what I would do is just traction and lean away. So I'm just going into, I'm taking them into scapular elevation. And then I would instruct the patient to inhale, and I want you to go into scapular depression. I want you to squeeze your shoulder blade down toward your butt, whatever cue you need to do to get the job done. So they would inhale, go into scapular depression. And then as they exhale and relax, I'm going to lean backward and take them deep into scapular elevation. When we are focusing on the scapular depressors at 180 degrees of coronal abduction, in this position, once again, the main emphasis is going to be on the inferior fibers of the inferior trapezius, and we're also going to be targeting mostly the inferior fibers of the inferior portion of the latissimus dorsi muscle. Also going to be getting a decent amount of the pectoralis minor. Some other muscles that will be involved, we will be getting a little bit of the subclavius as well as the most inferior fibers of the serratus anterior. And to a lesser extent, now we're not really getting a whole lot of the rhomboids minor. That is pretty much non-existent at this point. And with the rhomboids major, we're really losing it when we get into 180 degrees. The rhomboids major was mostly going to be active in those 60 to 120 degree ranges. At this position, we're really not getting a whole lot. With regard to the pectoralis major, though, we're still going to be getting some stretch in the pectoralis major, and it's going to be the most inferior fibers of the pectoralis major. So that's sternal attachment, the fibers that are closest to the rib cage and the xiphoid process. But the main emphasis, once again, is going to be the inferior fibers of the inferior trapezius, the inferior fibers of the inferior portion of the latissimus dorsi, and the pectoralis minor. During the next rest period, we're going to start moving away from the axial body, and we're going to start getting into the glenohumeral joint. So we're going to start working on the shoulder. But for right now, our rest period is up. Time for set number 2. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.